Have you ever wondered why, despite having so many possibilities, you still feel trapped? How is it that with endless options at our fingertips, we keep repeating the same paths as if something invisible were holding us back? What if that barrier wasn't something external, but something built within you? Jean-Jacques Rousseau once said, "Man is born free, but everywhere he is in chains." And this isn't just about social or political systems. The hardest chains to break are the invisible ones inside our minds. The limiting beliefs we carry, the fears rooted deep within us, and that endless search for security that ends up trapping us more than it protects us. Imagine living in a dark room, decorated with the furniture of your certainties. There, you arrange your opinions, fears, and convictions, believing that this is the only possible world. One day, someone opens a window, revealing a landscape you never imagined existed. That's when you realize the prison wasn't in the room, but in the difficulty of imagining what lay beyond it. Why do we stay trapped? Because it's comfortable. Leaving old patterns behind hurts. It even feels like losing a part of ourselves, as if it were a small death. But that comfort comes at a high price. We end up suffocating our spirit, losing curiosity, and ceasing to truly grow. In this audiobook, we will explore how to identify the bars of your mental prison. We will understand why we cling to certainties that harm us, discover how to challenge our paradigms, and learn how to rebuild reality in an expansive and vibrant way. Are you ready to challenge your certainties and take the first step toward freedom? Have you ever wondered why, despite having so many possibilities, you still feel trapped? How is it that with endless options at our fingertips, we keep repeating the same paths as if something invisible were holding us back? What if that barrier wasn't something external, but something built within you? Jean-Jacques Rousseau once said, "Man is born free, but everywhere he is in chains." And this isn't just about social or political systems. The hardest chains to break are the invisible ones inside our minds. The limiting beliefs we carry, the fears rooted deep within us, and that endless search for security that ends up trapping us more than it protects us. Imagine living in a dark room, decorated with the furniture of your certainties. There, you arrange your opinions, fears, and convictions, believing that this is the only possible world. One day, someone opens a window, revealing a landscape you never imagined existed. That's when you realize the prison wasn't in the room, but in the difficulty of imagining what lay beyond it. Why do we stay trapped? Because it's comfortable. Leaving old patterns behind hurts. It even feels like losing a part of ourselves, as if it were a small death. But that comfort comes at a high price. We end up suffocating our spirit, losing curiosity, and ceasing to truly grow. In this video, we will explore how to identify the bars of your mental prison. We will understand why we cling to certainties that harm us, discover how to challenge our paradigms, and learn how to rebuild reality in an expansive and vibrant way. Are you ready to challenge your certainties and take the first step toward freedom? Why do we insist on holding on to our certainties even when they cause us suffering? This is one of the great questions of human nature. We are creatures of habit, and often we prefer the security of familiar ground over the challenge of exploring the unknown. But what lies beneath this resistance? Jean-Paul Sartre, in Being and Nothingness, said that we are radically free. Yet let's be honest, freedom is terrifying. When we realize that we have infinite possibilities before us, the weight of responsibility suddenly falls on our shoulders. To escape this existential anxiety, we cling to narratives and certainties that provide a sense of stability. These certainties act as anchors in a sea of uncertainty, giving us shelter from the anxiety of facing the unknown. But this shelter comes at a high price. When we cling to a rigid vision of the world, we build walls that isolate us from new possibilities. It is like constructing a fortress around ourselves, believing it will protect us, only to realize too late that we have also imprisoned ourselves inside. The more we reinforce these walls, the narrower our field of vision becomes. Eventually, we become prisoners of our own ideas. Psychologist Carl Rogers described this phenomenon as psychological defense mechanisms. To protect our self-image, we reject any information that challenges our beliefs. For example, if someone tells us we are wrong about an opinion we strongly defend, our first reaction is not to evaluate the criticism, but to instinctively reject it. This happens because questioning our certainties means questioning who we are, and that can be terrifying. But this mental stagnation is not just an individual issue. It also manifests in groups. Just look at how political parties, religious institutions, and communities cling to their ideologies, even when evidence suggests otherwise. History is full of examples of people who chose to remain in the same place rather than face change, even when change was clearly necessary. One of the main reasons we cling to our certainties is fear. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of the unknown. Franz Kafka captured this feeling in his story, The Metamorphosis, where the protagonist wakes up transformed into an insect. But the true prison in the story is not his monstrous appearance. It is the isolation and repetition of a life where change is impossible. His grotesque transformation symbolizes what happens when we resist change. We become atrophied versions of ourselves. The danger of stagnation is that it is not static. It corrodes us from within. When we stop challenging ourselves, our minds begin to atrophy. Creativity fades, curiosity disappears, and little by little we lose our enthusiasm for life. We become trapped in a cycle of repetition, living day after day without real evolution. So how do we break this cycle? The secret lies in developing what philosophers call an open mind. But wait, this doesn't mean accepting everything without question. It means being willing to challenge your own beliefs and listen to other perspectives. It means understanding that our certainties are only temporary, and that the search for truth is never-ending. A practical way to cultivate this mindset is by training what philosopher Robert Anton Wilson called cognitive flexibility. From time to time, try seeing the world from a completely opposite point of view. Not to agree with it, but to expand your perspective. For example, if you are an optimist, try seeing things through the eyes of a pessimist. If you are religious, explore how atheists think. If you are conservative, consider a progressive perspective, and vice versa. This exercise not only challenges your beliefs, but also helps you develop empathy and gain a broader vision of reality. The way out of mental stagnation begins with accepting uncertainty. As philosopher Søren Kierkegaard said, life can only be understood backward, but it must be lived forward. This means that although we can seek meaning in the past, it is in the present where we have the opportunity to act and change. So I invite you to reflect. What are the certainties you have defended with all your strength? What are you afraid of losing by questioning them? And more importantly, what might you gain by letting go of those invisible chains? Escaping mental stagnation is not easy, but it is essential. It is a process that requires courage, patience, and the willingness to look deep within yourself. But once you begin, it leads to a life of discovery, growth, and true freedom. Escaping the mental prison requires an act of courage that few are willing to undertake: the deconstruction of the self. This process is painful because it shakes the foundations of the identity we have built over our lifetime. But it is also profoundly liberating. It is like the moment a prisoner realizes that the chains holding them were never locked. Friedrich Nietzsche described this transformation as the path to the Übermensch, the superior being who, by abandoning old beliefs and values, becomes capable of creating a new meaning for life. According to Nietzsche, you must become who you are. This invitation to metamorphosis is actually a provocation, a challenge to question who we think we are and who we could become. But how do we break down the walls of the old self? The first step is identifying what we call deep-rooted narratives. These are the stories we tell ourselves to justify our choices, our fears, and our limitations. Phrases like, "That's just the way I am," "I've always done it this way," "It's too late to change." These are clear signs that these narratives are in control. At first glance, they seem harmless, but in reality, they act as walls, limiting our vision of the world. Imagine someone who grew up hearing that life is a struggle. This belief, internalized from an early age, may lead them to see obstacles everywhere, even in places where opportunities exist. To deconstruct the old self, we must question these narratives. Where does this idea really come from? Does it truly reflect reality, or is it just a mental construction? Another crucial aspect of breaking free from our mental prison is embracing discomfort. We are so accustomed to clinging to our certainties that we forget that the unknown is where true transformation happens. It is like the myth of the hero who must leave their safe village to face the dragon. The hero knows the journey will be dangerous, but they also know that it is the only way to find the treasure. A powerful exercise is practicing vulnerability. Researcher Brené Brown, an expert on this subject, argues that vulnerability is the antidote to emotional and mental rigidity. According to her, when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we create space for new experiences and genuine connections. This means having the courage to say, "I don't know. I was wrong. I am still learning." For many, the greatest challenge in letting go of the old self is the fear of losing their identity. After all, who are we without our certainties? But as Heraclitus once said, "No man ever steps in the same river twice, for it is not the same river, and he is not the same man." This quote serves as a powerful reminder that change is inevitable. Resisting it is like trying to hold back the current of a river with our bare hands. The secret to overcoming this fear is to replace the idea of loss with the idea of transformation. It is not about abandoning everything. It is about renewing yourself. Just as a caterpillar must leave its cocoon to become a butterfly, we too must shed the old self to reach new horizons. And let's be clear, deconstructing the old self does not mean rejecting who you are. It means separating what truly matters from what no longer serves you. It means letting go of beliefs that limit you while keeping the values that drive you forward. Think of it as renovating an old house. You might change the walls, but the essence of the home remains the same. So I ask you, what is keeping you inside the cocoon? What beliefs, fears, or stories do you need to leave behind to start your transformation? Have you ever felt out of place, as if you didn't quite belong anywhere? That feeling of standing between two worlds, unable to fully identify with one or the other, can be uncomfortable. But within that discomfort lies immense potential for transformation. This state is what we call mental exile, and it is essential for escaping the prison of the mind. Mental exile happens when we begin to question our deepest certainties, when we allow ourselves to doubt not only the world around us, but also ourselves. It's like leaving the safe harbor of a familiar island to sail into unknown waters, with no guarantee of finding solid ground again. Danish philosopher Søren Kierkegaard described this experience as the leap of faith. For him, the moment we abandon our certainties and throw ourselves into the unknown is when we get closest to the truth. But that leap is anything but comfortable. It is lonely. It is uncertain. And often it is terrifying. Why is mental exile so powerful? Because it frees us from the chains of rigid belief systems. When we are part of a group or ideology, we tend to adopt its beliefs as absolute truths. This gives us a sense of belonging, but it also limits us. It prevents us from exploring other perspectives. The moment we step away from these mental ties, we begin to see the world in a broader way. This journey of mental exile is not an easy walk in the park. It is hard work, because it requires us to face the discomfort of leaving behind the image we have built of ourselves. For example, if you have always seen yourself as an extremely rational person, exploring spiritual or mystical ideas might feel strange. On the other hand, if you are deeply connected to spirituality, approaching the world from a more scientific or skeptical perspective may seem unnatural. This shift is difficult because it forces us to confront parts of ourselves that honestly we would rather ignore. But there is a unique beauty in this discomfort. When we become foreigners among ideas, we gain a freedom that few ever experience. We are no longer defined by a single system of thought. We can navigate between different perspectives, choosing what resonates with us instead of being confined to imposed truths. Writer and philosopher Albert Camus explored this idea in The Myth of Sisyphus. For Camus, the human condition is defined by the absurd, the tension between our desire for meaning and the lack of definitive answers in the universe. He argued that instead of running away from this absurdity, we must embrace it. In a way, mental exile is a reflection of that acceptance, a recognition that truth may exist in multiple forms, and that our task is not to cling to just one, but to explore them all. But calm down. The goal of mental exile is not to blindly adopt new beliefs. It is to make room for an internal dialogue. Think of it like traveling to different countries. You learn from different cultures, but you still remain yourself. This practice not only makes us more open-minded, but also helps us develop empathy, because we start seeing the world from perspectives beyond our own. Mental exile is a solitary journey, but it is also deeply enriching. It teaches us that we do not have to limit ourselves to labels or rigid belief systems. We can be mental nomads, exploring the best of each perspective while continuing to build our own unique vision of the world. So I ask you, are you willing to leave the comfort of the familiar to explore the unknown? Are you ready to become a foreigner among ideas, embracing mental exile as a path to freedom? Because once you accept this journey, you will discover that the certainties that once seemed solid will begin to crumble. And in the emptiness they leave behind, you will find the opportunity to build something new, something that truly belongs to you. After deconstructing the barriers of your mind and experiencing mental exile, you reach the most exciting and challenging phase of all, rebuilding yourself. This is the stage where you transition from prisoner to creator, taking control of the filters through which you see the world. Here you begin to build a reality tunnel that does not confine you, but expands you. Philosopher Robert Anton Wilson had an interesting idea. He said that reality is like a work of art, something we construct every day based on our perceptions and decisions. Think of it like remodeling a house. Before you build something new, you must first clear away the debris of the old structure. And with the mind, it is no different. To create space for the new, you must let go of limiting beliefs and outdated paradigms. The first step in this process is imagining the reality you want to live in. This isn't about fantasies. It's about crafting a vision for how you want your mind to interpret the world. Do you want to see life as a field of infinite possibilities, as a continuous journey of learning, or as a path filled with purpose and meaningful connections? Everything starts with that vision. A practical way to begin is by visualizing the elements you want to bring into your life. If you seek more joy, picture yourself surrounded by people and experiences that make you happy. If you desire more freedom, imagine yourself exploring new paths without fear of failure or the judgment of others. It may seem simple, but this practice is incredibly powerful. It helps reprogram your mind and reshape your reality. Rebuilding also requires cultivating curiosity. Don't settle for the world as it has been presented to you. Ask questions. Challenge what seems obvious. Seek out new knowledge and explore ideas that contradict what you already believe. As Socrates once said, an unexamined life is not worth living. Try setting a weekly learning goal. Choose a topic outside your comfort zone and dive into it, whether by reading a book, watching a documentary, or having a conversation with someone who thinks differently from you. This practice will not only expand your worldview, but also make you more open to change. Another key to rebuilding your reality is flexibility. This means being willing to adjust your beliefs as you learn new things. And along with that, accepting that making mistakes is part of the process. Many times we cling to a worldview because we fear admitting we were wrong. But listen, recognizing a mistake is not weakness. It is courage. Every time you change your perspective, you are making space for something deeper and more authentic in your life. One of the most important pillars of rebuilding is the environment you choose to cultivate, both inside your mind and around you. Internally, this means paying attention to your thoughts and emotions. One simple but effective way to start is by practicing gratitude. At the end of each day, write down 3 things you are grateful for. This helps your mind focus on the positive and creates a more balanced, uplifting emotional foundation. Externally, it's about who and what you surround yourself with. If you want a more inspiring life, seek out people who challenge and motivate you. If you want more peace, spend time in nature or in places that bring you tranquility. It all comes down to aligning your inner and outer world with the reality you want to build. Think of this rebuilding process like planting a garden. First, you must remove the weeds, the old beliefs that no longer serve you. Then, you plant new seeds, ideas, perspectives, and habits that enrich your life. With time and care, these seeds grow, transforming your mental landscape into something vibrant and full of life. When you rebuild your reality, you stop being a passive participant in life. You become the architect of your own existence, and that is the essence of true freedom, the ability to consciously choose how to see and experience the world. So now I ask you, what would your ideal reality look like? What is one small step you can take today to move toward it? The answer is in your hands, and more importantly, in your mind. True transformation begins where we least expect it, within ourselves. It's easy to blame the external world for our limitations and struggles. But the starting point for any meaningful change is the way we see ourselves and the world. The first step in this process is self-observation. This means developing the ability to notice your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors honestly, without judgment. How often do you find yourself repeating patterns that no longer serve you? How many of your decisions are influenced by fear or unchallenged beliefs? These questions may seem simple, but they hold the power to shake the mental walls you've spent years constructing. A powerful exercise is keeping a reflection journal. Write down recurring thoughts and intense emotions. Over time, you'll start to see patterns, and you'll be able to question whether they reflect reality or are just mental constructs. To deepen this practice, silence and introspection are indispensable tools. Philosopher Blaise Pascal once said, "All of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone." We live in a world full of constant distractions. It's easy to avoid confronting ourselves. But it is in that silence that we gain the clarity to recognize how our own thoughts may be sabotaging us. Meditation, aimless walks, or simply setting aside moments to be alone are powerful ways to create space for self-awareness. Emotions also play a crucial role in the transformation process. We are often taught to suppress or avoid negative emotions like anger, sadness, or fear. But these emotions are messages. Instead of rejecting them, ask yourself, what is my anger trying to tell me? What is behind the sadness I'm avoiding? Painful emotions may be uncomfortable, but they hold the key to understanding what needs to change. One of the most transformative practices is reframing meaning. Psychiatrist Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor, believed that finding new meaning in suffering was the foundation of resilience. He wrote, "When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. Think of a difficult event you've experienced. What did it teach you? How did it shape the person you are today?" Reframing does not mean ignoring pain. It means giving it a new purpose that helps you move forward. Transformation is a continuous process, not a one-time event. It requires patience and consistency because old mental habits tend to resurface. Establishing a daily or weekly reflection ritual can help keep the process moving. At the end of each day, ask yourself, how did I grow today? What could I have done differently? This simple habit creates a sense of purpose in your journey. Many people want immediate results, but deep change takes time. It's like planting a tree. You care for the seed, water it, and protect it, even when there are no visible signs of growth. Then one day, the tree begins to bear fruit. The repetition of small daily actions, questioning a belief, adopting a new habit, has an accumulative effect that transforms your mind over time. So now I leave you with this final question. What stories are you ready to rewrite? What beliefs are you willing to let go of to make space for something new? The power to change is already in your hands, and the first step begins within you. The mental prison is not made of physical walls. It is built from ideas, beliefs, and fears that we accept without question. But freedom begins when we stop defending our limitations and dare to step beyond them. Transformation is not just about breaking down the old. It's also about committing to building something new. So today, take a small step, because every moment of reflection, every challenge to an old belief, and every risk you take brings you closer to a mind that is free, open, and full of life. The journey has just begun, and it is yours to create.